gentlemen. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Finance Committee of the Parish of Ascension on June 10th, 2013. Councilman Kent Shakesnyder will lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Dear Lord, I want to thank you first of all for all the good things you've given us to the people of Ascension Parish, this special place and the special people that live here. We want to ask that you allow us to come to this meeting tonight and everyone make decisions that are in the best interest of the parish. And as we finish the business of this meeting, everyone goes home safely tonight to their families. And again, tomorrow is a new day and a better day in Ascension. We ask all these things in your name.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See if I can get hooked back up electronically here. Okay. Pardon? I'm sure they are. Absolutely. Anyone having any comment that they would like to make during the course of this meeting, if you'll please sign up on the appropriate agenda item. You'll be called on. You'll have 3 minutes to speak when that item is before the committee. There are no chairs additions this evening, but there is a chair's removal of an item. Item number 9 was incorrectly placed on the agenda. It has already been resolved by this committee and by the council, and so that will be, we will pass on that item. As it's been pointed out to me, Councilman Joseph is not present. He is out of town with his son, and Councilman Melanson has not arrived. Todd Lambert is also on vacation. At this time, it's my privilege to ask some very important members of our community to address this committee. They are doing so for the second time, and I want this committee to recognize the kind of commitment that takes from very busy people to come here on a second occasion. And I want you to know that I have solicited them to come back when it's time to actually make the final vote on this millage. This is an especially important time in our parish. We are growing. We are the fastest growing parish. Some would debate in the state, maybe the second. We certainly have the youngest population, and that in itself means that in our future we have issues. Whether we like to acknowledge it or not, we all think we're wonderful, perfect parents, but I can assure you that even the best parents have children who have issues and find themselves in somehow dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the judges, and dealing with the district attorney. And I have asked these folks to come here tonight and talk to us about this problem as it exists currently and what it means for our future. And we are also going to discuss the levying of a 1 meal tax in order to support juvenile detention and what we hope will be a new facility in our parish one day if that need occurs. I don't know who wants to speak first. We didn't set an order of business, but I think perhaps we would ask the sheriff if he would. The oldest. He's the oldest? Sheriff, you win. You also have the least hair. Well, no, I take that back. Judge Turner's got less hair.
Thank you, Madam
He'll
Chairman.
be next. Thank you, Sheriff, for coming. I know it's time-consuming for you.
Briefly, the people that we serve, I submit, expect us to address problems of urgency and to address them with some sense of vision to it and longevity. I know that it's the T word. All right, I get it, and this council has a tough challenge ahead, not only to reckon with a lot of the pulls and pushes that with the fastest growing parish in the state for the last 15 to 20 years, And when you mention revenue enhancement, clearly there's a great deal of skepticism by the public. I like the idea of this 1 mill levy because it addresses an immediate problem, let there be no doubt. And we do have an immediate crisis with this. We think because of Sheriff Wagasback and the Assumption model that it looks like we have an alternate site. And as a matter of fact, it looks like the alternate site provides bed per diem at a much more economic rate than the St. James model did. I also am understanding that this model that you have created would do an escrow of the overage on the 1 mill revenue in the anticipation of Ascension Parish controlling its own destiny at some point and having its own center. I would hope that reasonable people in the public who are watching this, who are reading about the article, the meeting tomorrow, would accept it as it is. And parishes of our size have these facilities. Parishes of our size, frankly, have juvenile delinquency issues. We have them. Our head is not in the sand about this. There's a DA and 3 judges here that will be able to testify to this as good or better than I can about the compelling sense of urgency about having alternatives to turning habitual violators back to their homes. I would ask, with all due respect to this board, and would offer my involvement in something going forward, is that now that we are really grasping with, Madam Chairman, a frontal attack on how we're going to provide services for juvenile offenders, that we would take it and look at it maybe a little more globally and look at how we can do some other things here. And I said we, the sheriff's office included, and how we can at least begin the discussion on how we can create some alternatives even to locking kids up, but having meaningful consequences for them. And I speak specifically about shelter services, those kinds of things that, once again, we know, and the parish president and I have had discussion about this, we know those are costly. And we know finances are an issue, hence the agenda issue tonight. I recognize that as a sheriff, and I recognize that there would be some expectation of participation in that by other government agencies, including the sheriff. I am open-minded and approachable to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
I'm the youngest by far.
Well, Ricky, come on. Will the youngest please step forward?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I concur with the sheriff said. This is really a way, I think, for you to shift some of the funds off of your back from general funds to dedicated funds for juvenile detention. As you know, we got out of the $250 a day problem temporarily with Sheriff Wagasback and Assumption. He's building a detention facility, and I think he's going to give us 10 beds for 5 years at a cost of about $130 a day, which is about half of what we were quoted before. So that's a good deal to us. I told Madam Chairman I would support this if any excess was escrowed to build our own facility in the future. I think for the first 5 years, you may have an excess, but I would anticipate the cost of housing those juveniles is going to go up exponentially in the next 5 years. So that fund, that escrow fund, is going to, we all know what's going to happen. It's going to get less and less in it, but at least it gives us a start, I believe, as a parish to build what we're going to need in the future. I don't have a problem with what the sheriff said about alternative services, but I just would caution, I don't like to see a shifting of a state responsibility to a parish responsibility. And it seems like once Louisiana adopted the Missouri model and went from a detention center type juvenile plan to a Missouri model, those post-convictions and the services provided for those post-convictions seemed like we were promised that by the state of Louisiana. And so I just want to caution you there. If you're going to take on the entire bill for that, it's going to get expensive. So generally speaking, I'm here in support of what you're trying to do. I appreciate it. We have to be able to house juvenile offenders in this parish. A lot of people put in a lot of time to make something temporary work, but what we have right now is temporary. Sooner than later, we will need a permanent facility, so I admire what you're doing and fully support it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Gentlemen?
Thank you, members and Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate you being here. Judge Holdridge, Judge Turner, and Judge Lambert are here, and I'm grateful for that.
We're going to let Judge Lambert be our leader.
She's your spokesman.
It's hard to tell a mother no.
I have to ask Judge Turner first how his wife is doing tonight.
She's doing well. She's still having some pain, but she's doing well. She had knee surgery. So.
I'm sure he's taking really good care of her.
For the public's awareness of this, Judge Turner this is such an important issue to him that he left his wife's bedside at the hospital having had knee surgery and came here to support this effort. So we thank you for that, sir, very much. Judge Lambert.
All right. Thank you for hearing us and allowing us to come tonight to speak on this important issue. The last thing that I want to hear when I'm sitting on the bench in juvenile court is somebody come whisper in my ear, Judge, we don't have a bed. And I have a juvenile delinquent standing in front of me that clearly needs to be placed in a bed and be taken off the streets and out of the home, and there's no place to put them. Then I have to start crawfishing with all the threats I've just made to this juvenile on, if you don't behave, I'm going to lock you up, because I can't do that. And I don't necessarily want to say, well, I don't have a bed, guess what, you're going home, when clearly he needs to be incarcerated, he or she. It could be either one. I wish I could tell you that we don't need a juvenile detention center, we don't need any beds, things are going great, but realistically that's not the case. And for the time that I've been on the bench, 16 years now, it's steadily gotten worse and the numbers have grown, and we're no longer the rural parish that we used to be with not too many problems. Where with the population growth this is what comes with it. And realistically, we've got to have juvenile beds, and I know I don't like paying more taxes, nobody does, but I also know that the alternative is to have juvenile delinquents on the streets. And I personally, as a property owner, would rather pay that $1 million than to have delinquents on the streets with no place to house them. And I know it's a difficult vote. Nobody likes to vote for taxes, myself included, but it's something that we need, it's necessary, and I don't want to make it sound too much like a crisis, but if we don't have these beds, we will have a crisis. And come June 30th, we've got to do something. So your vote in favor of this $1 million would be greatly appreciated and greatly needed.
One thing I'd like to say is that for 23 years I've been a judge, and this is the first council and the first movement that we've actually did to try to take care of the problem. We've put Band-Aids over the problems for 23 years, but this is actually a plan whereby not only we take care of the immediate problem, it looks to the future to take care of the future problem, which we all know that's going to happen. So I do thank you for being so forward-looking and actually trying to address a problem that we've had for 23 years.
Thank you, Judge.
I serve on a committee that was appointed to look at the problem that we have so far as the St. James Detention Center closing. And I can tell you that the parish president in St. James has stated that come June 30th, that's it. That center will close. And what you have to keep in mind, and Judge Lambert has mentioned it and Judge Holdridge has mentioned it, if you have a juvenile or juveniles, say drive-by shootings or whatever, and a lot of that is going on in Ascension Parish with Gonzales, Donaldsonville kids, just carrying guns, shooting at each other. And a serious event is going to occur. We've had some in the past, but I can tell you it's a crisis situation. So don't take it as a joke, please. It's serious. We need to have that detention center. We need to have someone to address the serious problems that we have with juveniles. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, I see Councilman Satterley has a
Yes.
question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you guys, the DA, the judges, et cetera, Sheriff Wiley. Madam Chair, because tonight the Finance Committee is, of course, only recommending to the full Parish Council, I want to be the first to say I'm going to support going forward, and that will, of course, allow more time for myself and all of us to study this, because admittedly I am, and I believe we all are, torn between always weighing yet another tax against what's no doubt greatly needed in this parish. That was clearly evident in the testimony of the folks that just spoke. So, I'm asking my constituents in District 4 tonight, contact me between now and the next parish council meeting. Let me know what is your thoughts. That's still very, very much important to me, as I'm sure it is to everyone sitting up here. And I would just say this, like the wedding vow line, speak now or forever hold your peace. I believe also it's a crisis and something clearly has to be done. It was pleasing to see that our sheriff and all the judges who spoke do support this tax. Let me just borrow from the words, if Judge Lambert would allow me. I wouldn't want to be in her position when she spoke and said, as a judge, someone whispers into her ear that we don't have a bed. And finally, I'd just like to say, one of my fellow councilmen just passed me a note that, as I asked this question, and I appreciate the information, before we get too upset about this, if this passes the full council, my understanding is that after the homestead exemption, for every $100,000 you still have in terms of value of your property, it's only going to mean $2.50. So, again, Madam Chairman, I'll support tonight, and we'll see where we go at the next meeting, but we definitely have to do something about the juvenile situation in this parish. And I thank everyone for listening.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Kluot?
Yeah, once more, I want to thank the district attorney, the sheriff, all the judges, the staff of the sheriff's office, the administration. That for the people that don't know it, there's been meetings that have been trying to solve this. Jeff, you said that sheriffs have been trying to solve it for years. You guys have walked into the judges' chambers, have walked into a problem that has been existing for a long time. We do have a lot of juvenile delinquency going on, and it's very hard to deal with. And some history is the St. James facility was on its way down. It's been going on for about 2 years. The price is going way up, and the parish president over in St. James, he tried to do some things with it, and it just couldn't quite work it out. Good thing is Assumption Parish did work out something over there, so we're able to do some overflow in that direction and move in that direction. But this is just not the first meeting. This may be the first time that some of the people that's watching in the audience have heard about it. But this is a serious problem, and it's a serious financial burden. There's some alternatives that shipping these juveniles far out. That's very expensive. It makes it very inaccessible for trial. It makes it very hard on the sheriff's office because they have to transport everybody everywhere. And so, I guess it boils back down to what Marilyn said, Judge Lambert, and all the rest of the judges have seen this before, that you either had somebody that they didn't have any place for or didn't have any long-term place for them. And it just cripples the criminal court system to try to work with it. I don't believe this millage is the worst thing that we could see, looking at the finances that it would have taken to work the St. James out and to do some other things. So I think this is the way to go, and working toward the future to put the excess revenue in to working out an Ascension Parish solution within our parish and building a facility. That's the right thing to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilman Lohr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Councilman Kluat pointed out, we are bleeding money as it relates to this issue right now. One of the biggest problems that we face in our jobs up here is the issue with undedicated funds draining our general fund and limiting our ability to do other improvements. This is, as Judge Holdred said, an opportunity for us to not only solve the issue now, but do something that we often are criticized of not doing, which is planning for the future. By having this money, any excess money escrowed, we will be able to build within probably 5-10 years, have enough money perhaps to build our own center, and make no mistake, that is definitely going to be needed, as we've heard from all the people who are dealing with this on the ground every day. So no question, it's a tough vote. It's not something we want to do, but at the same time, it's something we have to do in the best interest of this parish.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comments? Councilman Shakespeare?
Thank you, Chairman Cazo. This is funds for our youth and our future. The question I had, President Martinez, currently the tax that we have funding this, do we get any monies from the cities?
No, we don't receive any funding from the cities. I think that we could, maybe Mr. O'Neill can shed a little light on that subject.
Councilman, the issue with that is that I think if we pass this millage, it's a parish-wide mill, so they will be contributing. It's the party that brings the juveniles to the prison and so the sheriff has a contract with Donaldsonville, so we've always been responsible for those. So we've been responsible for all the juveniles.
Right.
Although
But I mean,
Gonzales now understands that if we don't pass this millage, they're gonna start paying their share.
okay.
Well, I've spoken with them. I'm working on an agreement with the sheriff in Assumption and Gonzales. I've spoken with Detective Methkin, who runs the juvenile matters, and they want to piggyback on us and be responsible for their stuff. You know,
But I
we
mean,
can't pass the mill.
and I guess what I'm getting at is, right now, it's coming out of the general fund, and the general fund is paid into by people that are outside of the municipalities. So if a young person that gets in trouble that lives in city, within the confines of the city, is actually being paid for the services by the people that are living outside of the city. And so I think this makes something where it's also a shared responsibility for everyone involved, that regardless of whether you're living inside the city, outside the city, you're living in Ascension Parish, and that everyone contributes to it. And I think that's very important. There's not any question whatsoever about whether it's needed or not. Pretty obvious when you get this many highly elected officials together in agreement. I think it's very important to acknowledge that. It's very, very important. We as a parish, we don't have a want to do that. We have a responsibility to do this and to fund it and fund it properly. I think if we'd be talking about a baseball field or a football field, we would want to do everything in our power to make it the nicest around. Not to make it necessarily that we're looking for something nice. We're looking for something that's going to be useful. We're looking for something that's going to be beneficial to the parish. And I can't think of anything that lets people in this parish sleep better than to know that young people that are not following the wishes of the majority of people in this parish are not going to be encouraged to continue their actions. That somebody like Judge Maryland is going to have an opportunity to follow up on the threats that they see, because we know as youth and as a teacher, if you don't follow up, then they're going to push it as far as they can. We're investing in the future. I'm okay. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to do that, and I think it's very, very important for all of us to get behind it. It's hard decisions to make, but it's very light considering the alternatives that we have. So,
Councilman Satterley?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A follow-up to Kent's comments. I believe, Mr. Parrington, perhaps in chambers or something, you once told me that the state actually mandates that we have to take care at the parish level our juvenile offenders, and that's irrespective of the incorporated cities that might lie within our parish boundaries. If that's correct, I think it's important that people know, though, that if we enact this 1 mil tax, and I guess, Madam Chairman, that would be parish-wide.
Yes.
Which would include the 3 cities. I think that's important to put in the record. And then a question for Sheriff Wiley, and you don't necessarily, Sheriff, have to come back up here. You look comfortable in your chair, but we have had discussions also in your office, I believe, sir. Mm-hmm. And I was under the mistaken impression, so I want my constituents to hear it from you, that maybe the majority of the offenders were in some of these incorporated areas, and you corrected me, showed me some stats that said that actually most is in the 70769 zip code, which is the area I serve in Prairieville. Is that not correct, sir?
Well, I just remember that most of them were outside the city limits of incorporated areas. Now, what zip code they're from?
Well, I mean,
I
that's
don't know that.
Prairieville, to be certain, and the density up there is really
But
high.
that's the growth area.
Right.
And if, I don't know that I want to be quoted as saying that's where all the juvenile delinquents
Okay.
live.
That's fair enough.
But if that's a random sampling of it.
That's why I
may-
have you
may
up here,
be-
Sheriff.
Right.
I will say this to my constituents, then, let me put it on me and not the good sheriff. When I campaigned, and more recently, we've got a situation in my parish that's where I went around the lots of houses in the last week, talked to people, and I am seeing in Prairieville more and more burglar bars. It's alarming to me, on the windows of some really fine homes and really fine subdivisions. So, and I'm also aware, and I'll put this in the record, I've got 6 or 8 emails in the last week from the Property Owners Association in Bell Grove off of Old Perkins Road, which is right next to me, of some pretty major, quote-unquote, teenage theft that went on last year in cars parked, mostly in the driveways. I did learn from you, Sheriff, so I'd like to say that here tonight, too, that the biggest problem there is just lock your car, and 95% of that crime goes away. And so I'm
Amen.
trying to educate my guys to that, but I'm not exaggerating. I've got
99.9% of all vehicle burglaries in Ascension Parish, and such as it is throughout the planet Earth, are cars that are unlocked.
Well, thank you for that, sir. And again, I know the people in Bell Grove are suffering, so you heard what the good sheriff had to say. It at least be a good remedy right now. Lock your doors and everything. But it's here, folks, and it's very prevalent in my district. Again, I'm waiting to hear from my constituents, and if I don't hear anything, so be it.
Councilman, let me just straighten it. Where the crime occurs is the arresting agency. So you can live in another parish, and if you're arrested in Prairieville, you're brought in, and the parish general fund is responsible for that thing. It's where the crime occurs is the arresting jurisdiction. So that's where the issue comes up. That's where most of the crime is occurring outside the city limits, but for those particular reasons. And on the other side of the river, the parish sheriff's department has the contract with the city, so they're the arresting agents.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perrington, for the clarity.
Okay.
And thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Is there any further discussion, gentlemen? If not, I would ask, the parish president would like to speak. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to add my support to this. I think it's something that's truly been needed over the years. In fact, in the early 90s, we looked at it and couldn't get it passed. I think looked at it again. I think Judge Holdridge has been through the mill and actually came up every time in support, and I want to thank him for that. But I think this is an opportunity to provide in the future, a center here in Ascension Parish that we won't have to worry about any other centers closing down or the price going up or anything else. And I think it's good. I think, as we said, we could create a committee and move this a little further and look at other things that we can do. So after the vote at the council meeting, I think that should create a committee to look at juvenile crime amongst the councilmen, I think, and then get a few people from the judges and maybe the sheriff involved also, so, and DA. So I think that's a good idea, but I commend you on at least addressing this issue and looking at it, and I think it's a step in the right direction. So I just want to throw that in.
Thank you, Tommy. In summary, I just want to say that, we are planning ahead for our needs, which is what we are often accused of not doing. We are planning ahead. We are taking responsibility for what previous councils, frankly, failed to do, plan and act. The failure to plan and act is going to result in a serious drain on our finances. It will also result in lost young people. Lost juveniles to crime become adult offenders, and big boy prison is more expensive than juvenile prison. It also results in a risk to our citizens when violent juvenile offenders are placed back on the street because we didn't have a place to protect us and them. So I want to thank all of our elected officials who were here tonight for the effort that they took to come and speak their mind and give support to this council. And I want to ask that we have a motion to move the ordinance that has been proposed to us to the full council for its consideration.
Motion.
Councilman, let me make, I'm
Yes.
gonna make some changes to this ordinance, just to make sure, it's nothing, just cosmetic changes. I'm gonna include another revised statute, because that allows for the construction of juvenile detention facilities, so I'm gonna have it where you can, the excess funds, it's my opinion, you could use those excess funds to construct a juvenile detention facility, but also there's another statute that allows it also. So I'm just gonna cite both statutes in the ordinance, so you'll get the ordinance in time, but it's gonna address both those issues.
Thank you, thank you. And we'll get that for review ahead of the
Yes.
council meeting. Okay. I have a motion. There were several. I didn't actually catch who did it.
Travis and Randy.
Councilman Turner
And I made
And-
the second.
and Councilman Kluot made the initial motion and second. Do I have any objections?
No objection, Madam Chairman, but that motion is with the amendment of Mr.
Yes,
Pennington.
it is.
Yes.
Is that correct? Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Then, hearing no objections, that motion passes, and we look forward to this coming to the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Forgot my knock. All right, we will move along from that heavy discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for all of your
Up here.
discussion on this issue. I really appreciate it. Moving along to item number 6, a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Parish of Ascension and Ascension Economic Development Corporation and the Industrial Development Board. Mr. O'Neill Parrington.
The Industrial Development Board has some income now. I mean, they haven't had some in a while. And so we had a meeting with them, and Industrial Development Board and AEDC work together a lot now. We met with them, and generally under state law, any of the excess funds from the Industrial Development Board belong to the state. Not to the state, I'm sorry, to the parish. But they're all responsible for paying their own bills. After looking at their situation and meeting with the administration, this agreement came about where AEDC and the Parish and Industrial Development Board will agree that the Industrial Development Board will retain a small amount of money to pay their bills, on the average of about $40,000, but if they would need more, it would be available to them. And the remainder would be split between the parish and AEDC, and the portion that AEDC receives would be a credit toward the funding that the parish makes to AEDC every year. So we've worked that agreement out, and that's what this cooperative endeavor agreement provides.
All right. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak with regard to this matter? I see Mr. Bill Dawson, the chairman of the Ascension Economic Development Corporation, and his and Miss Lisa Laws. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, good, Lisa. Well, thank you for having us, and just a couple of clarifications that, maybe Tommy and I need to talk a little bit further, but the 50% goes to Ascension Parish. That offsets your budget that you contribute. The other 50% goes to AEDC, and that's to offset the administrative cost and to promote economic development. We do the administrative work for the Industrial Development Board. They hold their meetings there, et cetera. So that was my appreciation when Parish President and I talked about it.
That's my appreciation as well in the agreement.
Okay.
If there's something different than, O'Neill, do you have a different understanding?
No, I didn't draft the IDB, but I think it's going to offset our contribution to them, which is, I see that as the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then, just for your information, there's about $140,000 in that account right now. My appreciation is the 1st of June, which is now going to be another contribution of about $35,000 from Impala. So you're looking at about, $69,000, $70,000 for the parish government, $69,000, $70,000 for AEDC. And then the annual cash flow into that account is about $70,000 a year. So you'd be dividing up that $70,000 after that, assuming that, they don't have any expenses greater than, what they've had in the past.
Thank you. Any questions, gentlemen?
Yes, I do.
Councilman Kluot.
Yeah, Bill, or maybe somebody, I know this gets confusing to the public sometimes, that we've got the Industrial Development Board and we've got the Ascension Economic Development Corporation. Can you give us a summary of the
Okay.
need and the split
Okay.
and
Well,
what?
I'm not going to proclaim to be an expert on the Industrial Development Board, but, just to tell you that one of the primary differences is the Industrial Development Board is a public body. Ascension Economic Development Corporation is a private, nonprofit corporation. Okay? So what that does is the Industrial Development Board, that allows them to facilitate these pilot agreements where they can take ownership of some of these facilities, and we can have these payments in lieu of taxes. So they're being a public body, they're not subject to taxes, but then we get the payment in lieu of taxes. They also have the ability to issue bonds or tax-exempt bonds. Ascension Economic Development has none of those capabilities. So you have an act of the legislature that allowed that, and they actually allow you to form these industrial development board. I think ours was formed in about 1980, somewhere along those lines. And
I think older.
their stated purpose is obviously for economic development in the parish.
And that's, and just to take it a little step further, I mean, I think in recent years it's had more publicity or more airtime or more face time with the Ascension Economic Development Corporation than the Industrial Board. But maybe the parish president could shed some light on what I'm talking about.
This board was dormant for years,
Yes.
basically. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of activity. Nobody came in. Basically, when it's property tax that you're giving a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes,
Right.
basically what they do is they'll go to the Industrial Development Board, and instead of, as Bill explained, they actually will own property and own land, and that way it gives the entity a tax break because it's a corporation that doesn't pay taxes, and it's also nonprofit corporation, so that owns it. So it saves them a lot of money over time. I guess Mr. Tony Bacalau's on that Industrial Development Board, and basically what the law says is that if they have any excess funds that they don't need to operate, then it would come to the parish, and the parish would use it for economic development purposes. So this way it kind of will ease our burden with the economic development that we pay, the $340,000 or whatever we do pay. So it'll be used for economic development, and then they can use the other half. So the whole thing will be in total used for economic development. As I tell Bill, he's not getting half. He's actually getting 100% if you want to look at it the right way. But I don't, he kind of talks in circles to me about this 50-50. So, but
Well, you get to handle 50% of it until you give it to them. That's basically what we can do. No, I just want a little bit of explanation. I mean, because there's some people get confused over the domain and how they're set up and all that.
Well, I think, the main thing is that they're a public body, so they're tax exempt. That's the primary difference between us two. And as Tommy said, they haven't been active. So there are only two projects that we've used them for so far, IMTT and Impala.
Right.
You do, however, have other projects that you think may become a part of that program.
Well, as we've talked about with actually the Finance Committee, this is a direction that we've been directed to move in, where we would have less of the sales tax rebates and more of these pilots, to where, the payments are more equal.
Correct. Tony, anything you want to add to this?
Actually, I didn't know that this was going to be on the agenda, and I stayed in the meeting beyond the Juvenile Detention Center, just so I could see the interaction. Let me just tell you my point. I'm the newest member of the Industrial Development Board, and I've done some research into exactly the authority, and I think it's been pretty well covered. But I think that the bottom line here is, why do we collect money if you don't use it for a purpose? Okay, so why continue to build a bank account year after year if you don't have something to do with it? All right, so the balancing act is either we cease to ask industry to contribute to the Industrial Development Board if we don't have a purpose for the money, or we come up with a purpose. It's, as I understand it, any purpose that is indirectly or directly related to industry is a potential source of, that you can turn money over to. So if it's a training program that benefits industry, you could donate money to that. If it's perhaps if it's a road program that's directly related, say an entrance or a turn lane into a plant, you could probably use the money for that. So that there's some broad use for it, but obviously the economic development is obviously a good fit. And I think the next step would be that this MOU would have to be approved by the board. I would be in support of it personally, and I think the rest of the Industrial Development Board would support it as well. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
Ma'am.
Yes, Councilman Kluwer.
Thank you, Tony, for representing the board, and thank the board for actually putting their money to use rather than just taking it. And I know they haven't had it a lot for a lot of years, you know, but
Right.
thank you guys for pushing it on, and appreciate your work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tony, very much. Gentlemen, Councilman Shake Snyder, sorry.
Yes, real quick. One of the things that we've tasked economic development with from the very beginning and asked them to do is to try to go out and be creative in trying to utilize their position and everything to try to generate outside monies to ease the burden of the parish putting up money for general fund for economic development, which we do see a benefit, and everyone has seen in the past few years. Obviously, economic development is spurred by gas prices in Mississippi River and everything else, but I think that the organizational structure of economic development, the work that they do, really puts it in the right areas where it needs to be, and presents. In speaking with people in industry that has come here in the last 5 years, their comments were that it's they really appreciate the process to come through, and some people that they had to deal with that they get answers from, and they feel comfortable with. So I think it's something good that we're doing something to reward people that are generating this money through economic development. It gives them more resources to deal with, and then it also rebates back to the parish some money that we can use to help benefit the people of Ascension Parish. So I think it's a win-win in all the situation. I'm glad everyone's working together on this to make something good happen. So thank you very much, Bill, and everyone, Lisa, and Mike, and everyone else in the Economic Development and the Industrial Board. Tony, thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to move this cooperative endeavor agreement to the council.
I'll do.
Motion by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Johnson. Any objections? That motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 7, renewal of a contract with DRC Emergency Services, LLC for disaster-related debris removal, compensation based on fee schedule, Exhibit B. And Rick Weber will be here to... Oh,
Weber's at a conference right now. Basically, we go out for these contracts every 2 years. We bid them out, and we give a contract on a yearly basis with a 1-year renewal, and that's what we're asking for tonight. Next year, we'll have to bid it again, and if there's anything that Rick needs to say, if we have to amend anything here, he'll be at the council meeting on the 20th. So.
I have a motion by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to move this motion. Thank you. All right. Item number 8, renewal of contract with Special Tuesday in the amount of $8,000. Gentlemen, this is a hangover in this year's budget of funds that we will be allocating. As you all are aware, you all were confident and placed in the grants program's hands, a program that will have folks coming to us for this kind of contribution, meeting certain criterion going forward. But this one is one of the old ones that we need to finish up this year with.
So moved.
Have a motion by
Second.
Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Kluot. Any objections? Motion passes. We will pass on item number 9 as previously mentioned. Item 10, monthly contracts report. Ms. Kilman.
We have the monthly contracts report for the month of May 2013 in your packets. It basically tells you which contracts we entered from May 1st through May 31st. If you have any questions, we can supply additional documentation. However, I want you to look over it for a moment and let me know if there's anything you're questioning.
Gentlemen, do we have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move along. Item number 11, the sales and use tax report. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And if you look at your normal sales and use tax report, this is for the month of collections for April, which represents March sales. And we have our 3 sales tax districts: East Ascension Drainage, Sales and Use Tax District number 1, and Sales and Use Tax District number 2. And the middle column compares 2012 collections to 2013 collections by month to month, April to April, and year to date. You can easily see at the last column in the middle column all the increases and the percents of increase, and they're all positive. And the last column on the right-hand side is compared to our budget. At 33% of the year, you can see that all sales tax district collections are over the budget. And the increases are in all sectors across the board, but they're primarily due to new expansions and a new construction at one of the chemical plants. And that is the primary reason for the increases. The second graph, the bar chart, shows you the sectors that had increased year to date in all the sectors, and shows you you can easily see by the bar charts that all sectors are have increased over 2012. And the last chart is the pie chart. And this is the one that shows you using just our 1-cent sales tax to give you an idea, a good idea, where our taxes are collected. And you can see the petrochemical industry is 60% of the collections, and consumer retail represents 25% of our collections to date, and motor vehicles 9%, and business to business 6%. And then, of course, the last page is a historical chart, and it'll show you from collections from in all 3 of our sales tax districts from 2004 to 2013 present. The yellow represents the year-to-dates as of this date comparatively, and the red represents the remainder of the year. And the yellow bar chart easily shows that we're ahead of all the years since 2004 in our collections. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, we will move along. Thank you, Ms. Gwynn.
You're quite welcome.
Item number 12, the Revenue and Expenditure Report. Ms. Amanda.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of April 2013. On page 1, total revenues are at 27.33% at 33% of the year. Funds highlighted in green are funds that are under the budget by 5% or more. And we have 11 operating funds and 9 capital funds that fall in that category, and on page 4 of the report is an explanation on those funds. On page 2, total expenditures are at 30.36% at 33% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are over the budget by 5% or more. And there are 11 operating funds and 2 capital funds that fall into that category. And on page 5 is an explanation for those funds. Page 3 are charts that compare both year-to-date revenue and expenditures for operating, which is your yellow bar, and capital, which is the blue bar, to your budget, which is the green bar. And on the last page of the report is a listing of all checks issued in the month of April over $100,000. And the total of those checks are $2,352,259.77. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Amanda. Gentlemen, any questions? Hearing none, we'll move along. Item number 13, a budget amendment. Number 2, approval to introduce ordinance to amend the 2013 budget. Dawn, please.
Good evening. You have before you an ordinance for budget amendment number 2, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2013 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 15th day of November 2012. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2013 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, general fund, expenditures and other financing uses, human resources, professional services, $49,500. East Ascension drainage, expenditures and other financing uses, Marvin Bro Pump Station, $750,000. Sorrento Pump Station, $200,000. Frog Bayou Locks, $220,000. Health Unit, expenditures and other financing uses, appropriations and grants, $50,000.
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
Have a motion by Councilman Lohr, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 14, bid items to accept the lowest responsible bid. Ms. Jones-Shivers?
Good evening. David Muggio is here if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
On May 30th, 2013, the Purchasing Department received 4 bids for the storm restoration to 7th District Fire Department. The lowest bid from Kuzan Services LLC was withdrawn on June 3rd, 2013. After review, the Purchasing Department, Fire District Number 1, and Muggio Architect recommend accepting the second lowest responsive bid from New Limits Enterprises LLC, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this project.
Motion, Madam Chair.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson and a second by Councilman Randy Kluot. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. And would somebody please take Councilman Lambert?
Motion to adjourn.
We have several motions to adjourn. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for excellent meeting. I appreciate all your comments. Thank you. We're out of here.